4, take every complaint and feeling the person expresses seriously. Do not undervalue it. Since most of the people who threaten to commit suicide do attempt it, you really have got to pay attention to find out who you need to contact. All right? Number 5, do not be afraid to ask directly if the individual has entertained thoughts of suicide. Now, that's not going to be the first thing I'm going to bring up, but don't be afraid to ask directly if this person is leading you down that path, it seems. There are some times where they're just going to have a dialogue with people and nowhere near serious yet. You only know that by listening and then talking to them. Number 6, do not be misled by the youngster's comments that he or she is past the emotional crisis. If they threaten to do it, but I don't know if you understand this or not. Most of you probably would. Those of you in ministry definitely would understand it. But especially when it comes to teenagers, their emotions are like this. And the fact that you're seeing them today when they're up here doesn't mean that when they're back down here that it's all over. Every youth pastor, this is something that they have a hard time with, is 1 week they've got the most spiritual group of young people that they have ever seen in their lives. And the next week, even though it's the same faces that are out in front of them, they wonder where these little reprobates came from. And that's because they're adolescents, and that's what adolescents do. Becoming an adult, hopefully, gets you more evened out, which is why some people who are adults are having to be on medication all the time because they never became adults emotionally. And that's sad. They have very little control. Man, we live in a country run on feelings and coffee. All right, number 7, be affirmative but supportive. Strong, stable guideposts are essential in the life of a distressed individual. If you say, man, this is way above my pay grade, then you need to get them to somebody. Number 8, evaluate the resources available. And there are some good church ministries out there that have some good biblical people to deal with this. Number 9, act specifically. Do something tangible. That is, give the youngster something definite to hang on to, it should be, such as arranging to see him or her later or to contact another person. Give them a name. Number 10, do not avoid asking for assistance in consultation. Call upon whomever is needed. Don't try to handle everything alone. I would suggest today that when your meeting with the person is over, that you sit down and write how the meeting went, things that were said, so you've got a written record of it. That helps your memory, and the older you are, the more important that is. I got to where I take notes. I just have to keep things in order. And also because you deal with so many different people about different things, sometimes it's easier when you get older to get a little confused. But suicide is a very serious matter. Now, I've already said the last 3 weeks, you don't just tell somebody who's on antidepressants to stop taking them. Their doctor needs to wean them off. The doctor needs to do that. More than likely, let's face it, for a lot of doctors, and this is not every doctor, their answer to everything is a pill, because I don't have any place on my schedule to see these folks within the next 4 weeks. So we need a pill to mask the symptoms. But masking the symptoms never solves the problem. Now, some people need a pill right now, or you'll never have the opportunity to get them to a counselor. So, all right, for that, the doctor's going to have to give them a pill. I'm not a friend of pills, but we live in a medicated society, and all these medications interact with one another, which make a whole nother set of side effects. It's one of the reasons why they have to say when it comes to depressions, one of the side effects is depression or even suicide itself. the very thing that you're taking the pill to avoid. So these are real problems that people have. Real problems that people have that sit in on services. And I agree. You know, people get saved for the most part. When God saves people, He always changes them. If any man be in Christ, he's a new creature. Old things are passed away. All things are become new. But in a believer's life, he begins making some wrong choices. There's going to be guilt. With guilt comes depression. With depression, who knows where that's going to end until they decide to turn around and start making the right decisions. You've got to deal with them. Now, the Lord willing, next week, I want to talk about child sexual abuse. We're going to deal with that in the Sunday school hour. And when I think about that subject, the thing that distresses me is that there are a lot of pastors I've heard say, I don't do any counseling because I do all my counseling from the pulpit. Yet I've never heard anybody preach a message on this from the pulpit. And anybody who was sexually abused as a child, they need help. There are an awful lot of side effects of the abuse. I'm talking about 30, 40. I have a message that I preached it here a couple of times, on child sexual abuse. I preached it in another place. I was preaching at a church not too far from here in a preacher's fellowship, preaching the message on child sexual abuse. From the moment I announced what I was speaking on, there was a lady in the church, seated about 4 rows back in the middle, who just started boo-hooing and bawling, and she did that the entire message. She was grown. Every time I've preached that message, there have always been adult folks who have come in to share what they've had and how it had bothered them for so long. Because most of the time, children are sexually abused by somebody they know. Or somebody even in the family. The old statistic of 4 out of 10 girls are sexually abused by the time they're 18. And that statistic does not change with the religious to the not religious, to the liberal or the conservative, to the fundamental or the liberal. Those statistics remain the same throughout. That means when you're preaching on those, or when you're preaching and you're looking out over your congregation, 4 out of every 10 of the females were sexually abused. May have been a long time ago, but they're still having to live with that and the bitterness of that and the other problems that come about from that. And so, believe me, it's wonderful when they get to face some things and get some help. So, anyway, that's what we'll cover next week. I'm just warning you ahead of time. All right, if you want to go to Brother Jeff's class next week, that's fine. Oh, it won't be next week. It'll be week after next, because next week the missionaries will be meeting in here for the missions conference. All right, we're dismissed till church time.